This film is dedicated to the memory of Father Stanley Bonk, the founders of the Maximilian Kolbe Foundation, and all of its members, past and present, who contributed to making the dream become a reality. The 1970s and 1980s were a time of great political change in Eastern Europe. In Poland, Solidarity fought for the freedom of Poland. By the end of 1989, Solidarity's success resulted in the dismantling of the communist governmental system, and Poland began its transformation into a modern democratic state. That decade of upheaval prompted the emigration of a vast number of Poles to Canada, many of whom settled in the Toronto and Mississauga area. The relatively small Polish community in Toronto grew significantly after the Second World War, and as it grew, the Polonia of Toronto moved further westward to settle in the neighborhood around Roncesvalles Avenue. The influx of Polish immigrants, the gentrification of the neighborhoods occupied by them, combined with the changing demographics and overall development of Toronto, caused a further westward movement of the Polonia in downtown Toronto to Mississauga and to the creation of St. Maximilian Kolbe Parish. Father Stanisław Bonk, Oblates of Mary Immaculate, was not only a man of deep faith and spirituality, but also a man of action, who had a special gift for organizing and motivating the community to accomplish great projects in the parish and, once it was established, in the foundation. Father Stanisław Bonk was born in Choczna, Poland, near Wadowice, on September 15, 1937, the sixth of 7 children. Seeking a better life for their family, his parents emigrated to Canada in 1939, leaving him and his younger brother behind, with the intention that they would follow shortly. However, World War II delayed those plans, and the family was not reunited until 1948. When Father Stan and his brother arrived in Canada, Father Stan was already 12 years old. He entered the Oblate Novitiate in 1956 and was ordained as a priest in 1964. After serving at several parishes in Toronto and Saskatchewan, he was appointed to be the spiritual director of Queen of Apostles Renewal Center in Mississauga, where he served in that role for the next 12 years. Then he was called upon to establish St. Maximilian Kolbe Parish in 1978 to serve the large and faithful community of Polonia in Mississauga. While overseeing the construction of St. Maximilian Kolbe Church, he came to realize that there was a great need for a meeting place, a center, not just for the parishioners, but for all residents of Polish descent in Mississauga and the surrounding area. And the dream of building a cultural center was born. He also recognized that the parish community desperately needed more parking than was available on the amount of land allotted by the Archdiocese. He recognized that these needs would have to be met by Polonia, and for that purpose, the Maximilian Kolbe Foundation was established in 1982. Father Stan had the foresight to recognize that the vacant parcel of land adjacent to the northern boundary of the church property offered an opportunity to meet these needs, and also to appreciate that it might be sold to a developer. He could not persuade the Archdiocese to permit the parish to purchase the land, as it already had significant financial obligations to pay related to the construction of the church. He approached various organizations in Polonia to purchase the land for Polonia, but none of them would commit to doing so. Not willing to give up, he decided that Polonia needed to set up our own organization. Father Stanisław Bonk, Jan Górecki, Stan Fujarczuk, Chester Smith, Stan Soltis, Kazimierz Świtca, Mike Marchlewicz, Richard Piątkowski, Karl Fujarczuk, Bolesław Bujarczuk, Ted Koszorek, Henry Slabe, Casimir Bonk, Waldemar Brick, Karl Maletsky, John Kostek. At a meeting in December 1981, the founders of the Maximilian Kolbe Foundation pledged $110,000 to be used toward the purchase of the land.
To establish a foundation and purchase the land, we needed legal advice. So we were fortunate that Chester Smith, a known Polish lawyer, offered his services. He was asked to submit an application to the Ministry of Consumer and Commercial Affairs, and as a result, in July 1982, we received the letters patent incorporating the Maximilian Kolbe as a non-for-profit organization. In December of that year, we were registered by Revenue Canada as a charity.
With the incorporation of the Maximilian Kolbe Foundation completed and the pledges collected from the founders, Father Stan completed the purchase of the land.
As to the purchase of land, our member, Wojciech Stock, a consulting engineer, prepared such a thorough and detailed comparative evaluation of the properties that with time we were able to buy the lands for $165,000, which was $110,000 below the original asking price. However, we were still short of $55,000. So we were selling little plots of 10 by 10 feet, symbolic plots, for $100 each. The rest was raised by other fundraisers.
During the construction of St. Maximilian Kolbe Church, the foundation land lay dormant. In February 1985, an agreement was struck between the foundation and the Archdiocese that would have the foundation provide parking spaces for 150 cars in exchange for an essential services easement and full access to the foundation land. The parking lot was developed at a cost of $102,000, which was raised and donated by the Ladies' Guild of St. Maximilian Kolbe Parish. Next, a foundation logo was needed. A contest held for the design of the foundation logo was won by Leszek Szczurek, and that logo is used to this day. In the meantime, while the church was being built, several committees were formed to raise the money for the now badly needed cultural center. The needs included meeting rooms for organizations within the parish, as well as for the entire Polish community, Polish Scouts, Polish dance groups, a library, and a medium-sized hall for social and cultural events. Chaired by Karl Fujarczuk, a building committee was formed. Diane Pogorzelski, Henry Lopinski, Chester Smith, and Father Stanley Bonk were authorized to retain an architect and to determine the nature of the facility. After interviewing several Polish-Canadian architects, they decided to hire Walter Bielaska. In addition to the building committee, other committees were needed. In February of 1987, the fundraising committee was formed, consisting of some parish council members of St. Maximilian Kolbe Church. Our center would be a cultural center, for not just the parish, but for all the Polonia of the Greater Toronto Area. Accordingly, our volunteers visited all the Polish parishes, asking for their support, which was generously given. Lottie Misek was president of the foundation prior and during the construction of the John Paul II Center.
The Kolbe 100 Club was initiated by Ted and Irene Chichura, followed by Helen Polgar. Members of the Kolbe 100 Club pledged $100 per month for 4 years. In return, the participants took part in 4 social events per year. The first was a banquet, which included a friendly roast of Father Standback. On this occasion, he was presented with a very, very large clock, a reminder to keep his homilies short. The second, he was presented with a shovel, so he could start digging the hole for the cultural center. Other events included the Jabot, which was a dinner dance on the Toronto Harbour. We had casino night at members' homes. We went to the races. We had theater nights and so on. There were 2 purposes for having the Colby 100 Club. The first, of course, was to raise funds. However, the second was to unite people who had the same dream as Father Standback, and that was to build a cultural center for his Polish community.
In October 1988, our cornerstone was blessed in Rome by His Holiness Pope John Paul II on the 10th anniversary of his pontificate. In September 1991, Father Stan Bonk ended his service as pastor of St. Maximilian Kolbe Parish. At that point, the foundation had raised $1.9 million in cash. Father Tadeusz Nowak was appointed as the new pastor of the parish and became a member of the board of directors of the foundation.
I was given the privilege of at least having some small share in completing the project, encouraging the people to offer what they could, and so that the project itself would not be at all funded by the government of any level, but fully funded by the Polish-Canadian community.
In the meantime, fundraising continued. Many different organizations within our community and throughout the Toronto area continued to raise funds for the construction of the Cultural Centre for Polonia. As part of those fundraising efforts, a number of campaigns were initiated. In one of those campaigns, the foundation offered a gold pin to individuals who donated $1,000, which was a significant amount of money in the 1980s.
Fundraising continued with door-to-door canvassing with the committee members. We covered all the Polish parishes and communities within the Toronto area, and we even went outside the Toronto area to Oshawa, Hamilton, you name it. In Ontario, we would go wherever they would accept us. The Ladies' Guild of St. Maximilian Kolbe Church also committed to equipping the kitchen of $30,000 with the dishes and everything else we needed to finish the furnishing of the kitchen. The Marie Curie Skłodowska Association committed to purchasing the great grand piano in our hall. Incidentally, the Marie Curie Skłodowska Association has been a big supporter of this foundation for the last 35 years.
In September 1992, the first annual golf tournament took place as a fundraiser for the foundation. This has been a major fundraising event for the center and has been chaired by Teresa Fujarczuk and Diane Pogorzelski continuously ever since. A fun event, not only for the camaraderie of the participants, but for the live auction with our professional auctioneer, Alan Stewart.
So when the Cultural Centre first opened, we realized that as a family we would need to have to support the Cultural Centre from year to year, not just being founders. So when we had built Granite Ridge, we decided that we would start to hold an annual golf tournament in support of the centre. Isn't that right, Dad?
That's right.
And every year we've been holding it since that time on the weekend after Labor Day, and every day we've been blessed with terrific weather.
In September 1992, our first golf tournament was held. It was organized by the Fujarczuk family, Lottie Misek, Alan Stewart, and the late Helen Poger. The golf dinners were lots of fun, with Alan Stewart being our notable auctioneer. In the last 10 years, the Knights of Columbus, Council 9612, joined us in co-sponsoring the golf tournament. They and their volunteers have enabled us to keep this tournament going for the last 26 years. Thanks go out to all the volunteers that have contributed to making this event possible.
Bingo nights have been running for over 21 years and have contributed substantially to paying the hydro and gas bills for the center.
In 1996, Richard Yarosh helped the foundation get a bingo license, and Bernice Kinau with a group of volunteers started to run the bingo. And she did so until 2015, at which time, due to health reasons, she had to withdraw from it, and I started running the group since then. And we have been making some fairly serious amount of money for the center.
During all of this time, under the chairmanship of Karl Fuyarchuk, one of the founders, the building committee continued to finalize building plans with the architect.
As chairman of the building committee, together with the committee, we have commissioned a Polish architect named Wally Bilaska to design a project suitable for the community. The project contained some commercial space for the Polish Credit Union head office and other commercial components. Major space was designed for the social and cultural needs of the community. When the plans were prepared, it went out for costing of the project, which was very high and higher than the community could afford. The project was scaled down to only the space that was needed for the community rather than go into commercial and other ventures. The project had to be started immediately due to the government regulations that were put on the foundations to start the project on time.
In June 1993, jubilation was in the air. Dreams had finally become a reality. The groundbreaking ceremony was officiated over by President Lottie Mysek, Father Stan Bonk, and Mayor Hazel McCallion. Over the next 15 months, the longed-for center slowly rose from the ground. We watched with anticipation as the place for the basement and foundations was excavated. The foundations were laid, and the building went up brick by brick. The community watched the building progress as they attended church every week, wondering what the end result would look like. They could see the outside, but what would the inside be like? After 12 long years, on September 17, 1994, the opening of the John Paul II Polish Cultural Center by President Lottie Mysek, Father Stan Bonk, Father Tadeusz Nowak, Bishop Matthew Uścicki, Mayor Hazel McCallion, and other dignitaries took place. The building was blessed and sprinkled with holy water. A beautiful banquet followed to celebrate the auspicious occasion. In our brand new center, we were able to accommodate a library, which started in the church basement and subsequently was moved to the center. Many other groups used the center: the Lahovia Dance Group, the Knights of Columbus, Polish Scouts, the Drama Group, the Seniors Club, and it is used for art classes, mathematics classes and competitions, English as a second language, table tennis, computer classes, Cafe Cultura. The bowling alley became a great meeting place for parents waiting for their children to complete these classes, as well as a great place to have fun. An ad hoc committee of Wally Brick, Henry Lopinski, and Frank Sobolak negotiated the purchase of a statue of the Holy Father, John Paul II, from the Polish sculptor Les Caluch for the price of $25,000. That sum was raised through individual donations. One of the important events of the 1980s was the visit of Pope John Paul II to Toronto. The chair used by the Pope on this occasion was purchased by the members of the Board of Directors of the Foundation for the sum of $10,000. It now sits with pride in our center. The center was fortunate to receive two major donations during the past 25 years. The first was from Jessie Leźniak, who at the direction of her godmother, Stella Rajtar, donated $100,000 from her estate to the Polish community. The second was a donation of just over $400,000 by Jan and Irena Górecki. These flagpoles were installed in May 2007 and were donated by Knights of Columbus Council 9612, St. Stanislaus and St. Casimir's Polish Parishes Credit Union, and by the Polish Alliance of Canada, Branch 26, thanks to the efforts of Henry Lipinski, who was instrumental in finding these three sponsors. The monument Pomnik Patrioty was erected in October 2008 to provide the Polish community with a place to commemorate national holidays. The Canadian-Polish Congress received the monument from the Polish Alliance of Canada and paid for the new engraving, installation, and transfer from Grimsby. Sadly, on January 28, 1995, Father Stanley Bonk, the inspiration of the center, died of cancer. Shortly